I've sewn two super cute woven tops with Raglan sleeves, super easy to sew, and the pattern is free. Lots to see, including a little full bust adjustment on a Raglan sleeve, fun print, chiffon. Stay with me. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing, and the pattern I've sewn for this video is free. I have featured free patterns from Peppermint Magazine before. You can download these patterns for free. All you need to do is type in your email address and you'll be able to download the file. They also suggest that you do a $2 donation through their PayPal, so that is totally voluntary and it's up to you. I think for the last 3 patterns I've downloaded, I have donated the $2 because it is great value and really nice patterns, and $2 is a really good price. So it's up to you whether you want to donate the $2 or not. Otherwise, the pattern is still free if you don't want to do that. The one I've chosen to sew today was in the latest issue of the magazine, and it's called the Paddington top. It's for wovens, and the designer that created the pattern for the magazine is French Navy. Now the designer is based in South Africa, and I have sewn one of her patterns in the past, the Orla dress, which is a free pattern, but I haven't sewn any more of the patterns because the sizing is limited in that website of French Navy. But the pattern that French Navy made for Peppermint Magazine has a better size range than that. The original design is meant to be a crop top. It's quite short from what I can see in the photos, and just looking at the pattern pieces and the finished length, you can see it's very short, doesn't have any darts on the front, has a Raglan sleeve that is quite voluminous, and on the hem of the Raglan sleeve you do a hem quite wide, and that will be a casing for an elastic that makes the sleeve puff up a little bit like that above the elbow. That is the intended length. At the back you have a button band. It's an integrated facing basically that's just folded onto itself with a bit of interfacing there, so it's very easy to sew. It's not a separate band, and the neckline is finished with facings. The neckline is high-ish, not that high, but it's not as low as I would want it to be. So just looking at the main features, I know I like a lot of them. I know I want to change some of them, which is always possible when we sew. We can always customize our garments to the way that we want to wear them, and I know I like a lower neckline. I know I like a longer top, and I'm pretty sure I don't want those puffy sleeves. So you can still make the top, you can still use the exact same pattern pieces, just with a few changes. It's designed for lightweight woven fabrics that don't stretch. It's not a design that really needs a lot of drape, especially if you do want to make the original design with the sleeve that puffs up a little bit. A lightweight cotton lawn, a cotton gauze, maybe a lightweight linen. Those will give you a little more structure. Now if you want your garment to flow nicer and be drapier, you can go with the lighter drapey fabrics like chiffon, like crepe, georgette, silk, that sort of thing. And because I know that I don't want to do that elastic casing and I want to hem my sleeve normally, I really want this sleeve to drape because it is quite a big sleeve. Once you see the pattern piece, it's like bigger than your front and back pieces. It's quite a big sleeve, so I definitely don't want to have a big sleeve in a fabric that does not drape. And remember that lightweight fabrics does not equal drapey fabrics. There are very lightweight fabrics that do not drape at all. You just have to see how they fall. You can have a pretty sheer lightweight fabric and it be stiff. So just have a look at your fabrics, put them on your bodies, see if you like how they fall on you, and that's the best way to make choices when you're mixing patterns to fabric, and looking at the features as well. For my fabric choices, because I'm keeping it light and I'm keeping it drapey, I have 2 fabrics I've sewn this time because I can't just seem to sew one pattern for you. I always end up making 2. It's just a reflection of how much I love the style. So one is 100% rayon. It's got a huge print. I think the biggest print you've ever seen me sew. And the second one is just a really basic black chiffon. It's going to go a long way in my wardrobe. I can wear camis underneath and it'll be a perfect little cover up top to put on. And I really like how that turned out. The sizing on the Peppermint patterns don't come in the traditional numbers that you might be used to, like 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. No, they come in letters, so it's really good because it really makes you look, measure yourself, compare the size chart and choose without your preconceived notions about what size you think you are in this brand or that brand. You know, it takes that out of the picture. I think it's a good exercise to do sometimes because we might sometimes blindly choose a size without looking much at the measurements and then end up with things that don't fit. So the sizing comes from A to K. The larger measurements here include up to a bust of 50 inches and a hip of 52 inches. So, you know, there are patterns that have a larger size range than that. Up to the 52 can serve a lot of people for sure. It does not serve everyone. When I looked at the finished garment measurements, I thought, yeah, it's a really roomy top. I meant to sew a size H if I look at my body measurements, but I decided to size down to a G. Just a whole size smaller than that, knowing that because it's not indicated anywhere, but I am assuming that this is drafted for a B cup, that I really want to put a dart in there. I'm not too concerned about the ease around my bust here because it is a top that has a lot of positive ease. But I am concerned because sometimes even if you make a top that has enough ease for your bust, it's not going to account for the extra length you need in the center front. And you might end up with a top that's pulling higher at the center front compared to the sides and to the back. And it's never a good look in my opinion. So I thought, why not do a full bust adjustment? Why not take it from a B to a C cup? It's not a huge adjustment. You know, my dart that's going to be generated there is not going to be, you know, massive. But I think that extra length added to the center front and the slight shaping on the sides always does make a difference, and I think it is worth it. So going down a full size smaller, knowing that I'm doing a 1/2 inch full bust adjustment, which means I'm adding an inch across the front, means I'll have an extra inch at the waist and the hips and the bust as well. So I was not concerned that much about making a mistake, about making a size smaller than what my measurements tell me. It is very relaxed. You have 5 to 6 inches of positive ease at the bust, at the waist, and at the hip around 9. Although this top does not reach the full hip at all, I think it'll hit the high hip. It's quite a crop top. When I measured the pattern, it would barely cover a waistband if I was wearing, you know, a skirt or pants. And that is not how I wear my tops at all. So there is a shorten and lengthen line there, and I used it and I added a whopping 4 inches there to the length, making sure that at the hem, measuring across that was actually going to fit my hip. Sometimes when patterns are designed to be cropped, they don't reach the full width that a full hip would have, but in this case I'm fine with just lengthening it and making the side seams look a little nicer. In Up Close and So Personal, you see a lot of things, a lot of practical things. You see quickly in like 3 minutes how to do the full bust adjustment, where I added the length, how I'm going to give this a little bit of shaping. You'll see some sewing construction, so let's hop into it.
Don't you think this is starting to wear on me? You've been rated down like hell, I'm weak.
With a raglan sleeve, it's harder to measure because you don't have a clear shoulder point, because part of the neckline involves that part of the raglan sleeve there. On this pattern, on the sleeve there is a notch that marks where the shoulder should be, so that's good. I've marked it in red. I pin this together, the sleeve with the front armhole, with a 3/8 seam allowance there, and I have it aligned here very neatly. So knowing that this is the shoulder point, knowing that the base of my neck will be right there, that's where my shoulder would be, I'm going to measure from here down and mark my bust height, which is that red circle there. It is still approximate. I will still confirm this when I sew my garment, but I know that it will approximately be around there if I measure from there down to there. If I didn't pin on the raglan sleeve and tried to measure from here, you can't. You just don't have a clear reference point just using the front piece. And now, knowing that I have this bust point there as a reference for me, for my body, I can go ahead and do the lines to do the full bust adjustment. Now it's the same as all the other full bust adjustments you would have seen. Over here where we have the notch that will align to the sleeve there, I'll just mark the 3/8 seam allowance. The distance from the center front to that bust point is half of the distance between my apex and my other apex. So that big circle just marked my bust height, but actually the distance between my both bust points is there actually. I'll just put that little one. From that bust point, I'm just going to draw a line horizontal like that, that's perpendicular to the grain line. The grain line on this pattern is the center front because it's on the fold. And then I'll measure what the distance is from here to the center front and just do my line all the way down. So I'm doing the same cuts that you do for a full bust adjustment. I've done this long one here in the center, and then going off to the armhole, just up to the seam allowance mark, not through to the edge of the paper. Here on this edge, I'm just going to snip into there to allow that to be a nice hinge point. And then on this line that marks my bust height horizontally, I'm just going to cut up to the point but not through it. And this will allow the full bust adjustment to open up this area and create a small dot. And now I can move this out 1/2 inch, which is what I need to move from a B cup to a C cup right there. And you can see that that opens up a small dot right there. I'm going to make a line across here as well so I can lower the center front area to match this. And that will be the full bust adjustment that I need for a raglan. It's the same as the others, it just looks a little different here, but it will achieve the same effect, which is add a little bit of width, add a little bit of length to the center front, and create a small dot right there. Now if you don't want that dot there, the pattern actually doesn't have a dot, you can close this dot and just swing this out to the side like that, and it'll just give you a bit of extra space at the waist and hips, so it will be slightly flared out like that. But I think the pattern has enough ease at the waist and hips. I don't mind having a dot there. I never mind having a dot if it's correctly placed for the body. It shouldn't be something ugly. I'm actually going to sew that little dot. It won't bother me. I had already added 4 inches there at the shorten and lengthen line previously to doing the adjustment. This is a crop top and I just can't work those. So I added 4 inches there, always confirming that this area will actually fit my full hip, and it does. So that's what I've done there. Here I have my back piece and my front piece, and I filled in the gaps where I needed to with pink paper, so you can see what I did with the full bust adjustment. A little bit of length over here, a little bit of width there. This length doesn't change, so it doesn't change the sleeve. I have the dart closed there. And I'm going to show you what I'm going to do to bring the waist in a little bit for both of them. Knowing that my waist is around 4 inches below my bust, right there, I have a very short torso. I just measured there and figured out that that's where my waist is. I can always confirm this when I try on my garment, but I'll just do it on the pattern. From there, I just brought it in by 5/8 of an inch. So this design is quite straight. There's no shape on the side, but I want to give it some discreet shaping. So I brought it in by 5/8 of an inch there, and at the same level here, you can see from the bottom I'm at the same height. I took away 5/8 of an inch there. That removes 1 1/4, 1 1/4. It basically removes 2.5 inches from the waist. From there, I brought the line gently back out to the hip, same as both sides, and on the back up to there, up below the armhole, and on this front as well. And that's why I needed to have this dart closed, and that will be true to the new shape of the side seam that just comes in a little and goes out. It's still going to be a very roomy top. I'm not making it tight or anything, I'm just bringing it in a tad. Okay, so there it is. My new dart has been true to that shape. You can see it comes in a little. I've just taken this top from a boxy crop top to just a longer one with a little bit of shaping on the side. And I'll show you what I've done to the center back. The center back has a fold line there. There's a distance of 3/4 of an inch or 2 centimeters there, and there's a 3/8 right there. This is the integrated facing that you have at the back for your buttons. So you fold this once like this. This section will be interfaced and it'll finish like that on the inside, and that's what you top stitch down, and that's what gives it more structure for you to do buttonholes and buttons. Now if you take this wider edge, divide it in half, that's where the buttonhole would be, and that would become the center back if you didn't want to do the buttons. So I'm going to make a version with the buttons down the back. I think that's cute, but I want to do a chiffon version where I want to eliminate this. I just want to have my back on the fold. So on that line that I made in the middle with red, that would be my center back if I wanted to make this top on the fold. So I have both options here. I don't need to cut anything away. All I need to do is fold this back and then put this on the fold like that if I don't want to have the buttons. And if I do, I just cut it like normal. These are the pieces for the body of the Paddington top, the basic ones. This one here is the front and it's cut on the fold, and it's got a raglan sleeve. You can see the shape of the armhole there. The neckline is very high, And I don't want to modify it just by eyeballing. I actually want to sew this, put it on myself, and then determine how much I want to lower that, because I definitely don't want it that high. That's the reason I didn't cut these facing pieces, because I know I will be modifying the neckline, so there's no point in cutting out those. And actually I'm very tempted to use bias binding to finish the neckline and not facings. For the back, that's where you have your buttons. So you have 2 pieces for the back, it's not cut on the fold. I already have the integrated facing for the buttons already folded and pressed. You just interface the edge, pressed it in once, pressed it in again, and there are lines on the pattern for you to do that. I won't sew this yet. I'm going to leave that to be sewn sort of at the end when I have the blouse assembled, because I want to try it on, modify that neckline, see how much binding I need to make, and then I'm going to finish the neckline there. So before sewing anything, I'm going to stay stitch those necklines, those 2 pieces and the one on the front. And I'll show you how huge the sleeve piece is now. So this is the raglan sleeve. It is very, very big. It's meant to have a hem that would fold up like a casing, and then you would put an elastic there. But I am tempted to not do that at all and just hem my sleeve normally and just let this drape on my arm. It's not full length. I believe it's about 3/4 length, or just below the elbow. On this raglan sleeve, on that curve over there, you have a single notch that will match the single notch on the front piece, but you won't have any notches here on the back. It's still very easy to put together because that single notches indicates that this is the front part of the sleeve. This top curve will be part of the neckline, so I'll also be stay stitching that before I get started. I have already stay stitched all the areas of the neckline. Here, the front, the back, the front, the back, the top of the raglan sleeves. This is the front piece. I've got the raglan sleeve on top. Match the front to the front. There's a single notch right there and a single notch right there, and I've done that on both sides. And I'm gonna go ahead and pin the whole thing. These are the curve of the raglan sleeve. Here goes with the back. Find the back that matches right there, and I'm gonna pin that one and also pin this one over here. I would rather just go ahead and pin everything if I can. I think it's faster that way, and putting together a top with a raglan sleeve can be super easy. That will be that side there. You'll see 4 seams that have a similar shape, the curve of the armhole uniting to the raglan sleeve. I'm sewing the front piece to both front sleeves, and then I'm going ahead and sewing the back raglan sleeves to the back piece. Then it'll be just all one extended piece. That means that you're sewing the raglan sleeves in flat, which is usually what happens with raglan sleeves, although you can sew them on the round and sew the side seams first and then insert the raglan sleeves later like you would a regular sleeve. That is the way that I would prefer, but in this case I am setting them in flat because this is a very loose style. I believe the armhole is meant to be lower on purpose as part of the drafting because the size of the sleeve. So considering also that it's a very lightweight woven, like a viscose, that seam that you get under the arm when you sew sleeves in flat won't bother me. At this point, the raglan sleeves have been sewn and serged. The seams of the raglan sleeves always go pressed towards the sleeve. So when you sew the side seam and the sleeve as a continuous seam, you want to start sewing from the bottom, going up, making sure the seam allowance is going that way too, on the sleeve on both sides, the one underneath, and then you finish off at the hem of the sleeve. This is the first one I made. You can see this print is navy and it's got orange and it's got huge flowers on it. Like, this flower is just the biggest flower I'd ever seen in a print. But why not? You know, why not? I like orange and navy. It's always a nice combination. There's a little bit of green in there. And my neckline is wider and lower. That's something I just determined by putting this on myself, the garment almost sewn, and just figuring out where I wanted it to actually be on my body. Decided not to use the facings, as you saw, because I knew that I didn't want that high neckline. You can always finish necklines with bias tape. It's something that I've done so many times. This is how the neckline looks inside. It's finished like I always do, you know, making the bias tape a little narrower. It's got under stitching, top stitching, Very neat, very flat. You need to make your bias tape narrow inside. That's always going to give you a much better result around the curves than if you just leave it the original width. At least in my opinion, I always get really perfect necklines when the bias tape is quite narrow. On the middle of your raglan sleeves there, you'll find notches, and those are there to signify where your shoulders are and also where you need to match up the facings if you're doing the original neckline. So from that notch there, that's where I started making it lower and wider, and from the original I dropped it about 1.5 inches. I have all the details about how I changed the neckline on my Patreon page for my Patreon supporters, so if you're there, you can see that extra content right there. Super easy to sew. Actually, you saw some basic construction. I just hemmed my sleeve normally. It's folded up twice by 1/4 inch. And it's the same finish I did to the hem. That's how the integrated facing looks inside. It's just the same pattern piece that's folded onto itself, first by 3/8 and then by 3/4. So that's very easy to finish. Always remember that your raglan sleeves have the seams pressed towards the sleeve. You can see that there, and on the other side, make sure to keep that nice and neat. Otherwise, super easy. I did sew my raglan sleeve on the flat. That means I have just one seam on the side seam that includes the sleeve and the seam here. And I knew that because this is a lightweight woven and because the armhole is quite low here, you know, due to the design, I knew it wasn't going to be a seam that was going to be close to this area. That's really sensitive for me. And that's the reason I don't like sewing sleeves even on the flat, because it gets really bulky there. But not with this one. This one was fine. Now these buttons are purely decorative. They don't help you put your head in through the neckline, because even if you did the original neckline, it is still wide enough for you to get your head in and out without drama. So I didn't do any buttonholes. I just sewed my buttons through the layers. They are about 2.5 inches apart right there, and I have 7 of them. Just basic navy buttons. I think it's a cute feature. And for a rayon, I would totally do it for fabrics that are not sheer, for fabrics that are matte. Opaque, yeah, for sure. It just gives the top something extra, you know. So let's see how this one looks. Basic denim skirt, navy pants, orange shoes. This is my Paddington top in 100% rayon with a huge print. It's actually a great design for huge print because there's not many seam lines here. I only have 2 little darts that I generated with my minor full bust adjustment. I did to bring it from a B to a C cup, but I can have this flower all on my front there without interruption. I did lengthen this because this was supposed to be a crop top, so it's 4 inches longer, and this is the length that I can wear tops. I just cannot wear crop tops. And this is the original sleeve, only it's just been hemmed normally, and the casing for the elastic, all that is just being bypassed because I prefer this look. Super flowy, love the colors. I won't get lost with this one. I could be easily identifiable, like the woman wearing a large orange flower on her body. This one does have the original buttons on the back. I don't have buttonholes there, I just sewed the buttons right through. And yeah, lovely length. This is the length I like, mid-hip. It doesn't cover my bottom. The length of the sleeves is perfect. It's about 3/4 length. Even though it's a big sleeve, it's not going to get in the way of your life. Like if you're trying to eat or go to the bathroom or something, you're going to be fine with a sleeve length like this, even though it's voluminous. You can see my lower, wider neckline, and I always prefer that to a higher closed one. And you know, you can perfectly change your necklines. The original has a facing, but because I made modifications, I thought it was easier to finish it with bias tape. Super easy to finish inside, and it's nice and clean. Nice and flat, no gaping, nothing like that. Here's the seam of the raglan sleeve right there. You probably can't see it that much, but these sleeves are always so easy to sew, so easy to fit. Love raglan sleeves, they're just so easy compared to the other types. Super happy I tried this pattern. It's free, it's lovely, it's for wovens. What more could you want? And also a raglan sleeve is not that easy to find in woven patterns. So I think this is a great one. I can pose like this so I can show off my sleeves, and 100% I prefer them like this. For the second one, I decided to do my sleeves like this also. I won't be doing the elastic feature there because that's just not my thing. Lovely, recommend.
What can I do? Time flashed by and I woke up on the other side of the moon. The sun don't rise, all the light is gone from me and you.
After having done my first one and really liking the style, how the sleeve fits, and just how the top looks and flows, I decided to make another one in a basic black chiffon. Ta-da! You can probably see me through it. It is very transparent. The neckline is the same as the one I had adjusted already previously. I made the changes to the paper pattern so I could just cut out this one normally, so it could be the same. And I have the neckline finished with bias tape that I made from the same chiffon. When you're pressing this type of bias tape, just drench it with starch spray or something that helps you press, and then that transforms that chiffon bias tape into this really stiff thing that's really easy to work with, and then that will come right off. It's not going to be stiff, you know, it's not stiff anymore. Sleeves are the same. You can see all my seams through there. I didn't do any French seams. I just serged and sewed normally. This uses a 3/8 seam allowance. And my hem was done the same, 2 small folds. You know what I do with chiffon? I hand baste these 2 folds first and then I top stitch. And that gives me a very narrow, very, very neat finish on the hem for the bottom and the sleeves. Always worth it. Maybe here you can see my little dot. It's very small. It is worth it. It gives me a smoother look on the side. It gives me a bit of extra length in the center front that I need because of this curve. So don't think it's worthless, although I have thought it's worthless in the past to take something from a B to a C cup. But, you know, if you have the time, why not? Definitely if you have a larger cup size, you know, just trying to fit into this pattern that's based in for a B cup, if you're a D or a double D, I don't think is a really good idea because you might end up with really wide necklines and sleeves that hang off you, and it's just not going to fit you right. If it's made for a B cup and you have a larger cup, I think it's worth doing a full bust adjustment. I've shown you mine here, but I have a full-on video about how to do full bust adjustments. And don't let the fact that it's a raglan sleeve make you think that it's harder or different, because it is the same thing. And you saw how the same it was. It's just a different shape armhole. But all the lines, the cuts, how much you spread, the theory is identical. So let's see this basic one. I really like it. It's so floaty. It feels like I have nothing on. I've taken silly photos with my arms out like that so you can see the shape of the sleeves. I really like it. This is the second top I made. My black Paddington chiffon top. No casing and elastic on the sleeves. Just hem normally so it can drape like that. And I think it's a really nice top to wear. Love the length. Took a little while to sew because it is chiffon, but it's very nice. Feels like I've got absolutely nothing on. I really enjoy my wider lower neckline. I wanted it like that, and I checked it with the first one I made. If I can change it, why not? And you can see the cami is underneath. You can see it because it is she, and that's the idea. I can wear different types of camis under here, different colors. You can't really see that it's red, but it is. Love the sleeves, so nice. Look at this. I love it so much more like this. I'm sure I would not want to do the casing and have the elastic make a balloon here. I'm sure I don't want that look. I like it like this. This is simplified because it doesn't have the button band at the back. I just cut it on the fold as you saw. So easy to sew. You could try this in a fabric that's not so hard to work with, like chiffon, if you want to, but I really love this version and I'm glad I tried the pattern.
Don't you think this is starting to wear? You've been raining down like hail. I'm weak. I have tried to give you my soul, but you can't love something.
Really nice instructions, really nice diagrams. Although they mainly are drafted for a B cup, you can do pattern adjustments to make them work for you. I know the sizing won't work for everyone because it goes only up to a 52-inch hip, and I do hope this improves over time. It's not that easy to find woven tops with raglan sleeves that are cute. I want to encourage you to look at patterns with an open mind, look at the liner, see what other options you have with the same pattern and how different it could be, and not just stick to what you see there. If I would have seen this top just as a crop top with the puffy sleeves, I would have just said, no, I can't use this. But actually, I've used it and I've sewn it like I like, and I'm very happy. So go ahead and look at patterns a little bit slower and just take in what you like, and always have it in your mind that you can change things to make them the way that you like them, because at the end of the day, you're the one wearing the garment and no one's watching you that you're not allowed to change a pattern. You are allowed, and you can get something that you like. Maybe you love the original design right there. It's all personal preference. I've shown you the things I've done so that my tops come out exactly like the way I want them. And I think having that ability is awesome. It's empowering because you can create what you really want. I'm always trying to encourage you to make small changes that will make you the happiest with what you sew. Have fun sewing, and I will see you again very soon. Bye.
Can